The clink of silverware against porcelain had been the only sound for a few minutes, until Mom set her fork down with a sharp clink that made me glance up. Her eyes locked on me across the long oak table, her lips curling like she'd been waiting all afternoon for the moment. "At some point, Emily," she said, her voice just loud enough for the other tables nearby to hear, "you're going to have to accept reality. You'll never be successful. Stop dreaming." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The words hung in the air, slicing through the hum of the crowded restaurant. I felt heat creep up my neck, but I didn't speak. Across from me, my sister smirked into her wine glass, clearly enjoying the public humiliation. Dad didn't even look up from his steak. The chatter at our table stilled. My cousins looked down at their plates. The waiter, who'd been refilling water at the table beside us, slowed slightly, pretending not to hear but clearly listening. I gripped my napkin under the table so tightly the edges bit into my palms. "Pass the bread," I said calmly, forcing my voice to stay steady, my expression unreadable. If she wanted a scene, she wouldn't get one. "Bread?" Mom laughed, tilting her head. "That's the problem with you. You think small. Bread? Crumbs? You'll be 40 still talking about the next big thing you might do." "Mom," my brother Mark muttered, shifting in his seat. She ignored him, leaning back in her chair, her bracelets jingling. "You can't even hold a stable job, Emily. You bounce from idea to idea like life's some kind of game. It's embarrassing." I stayed still, swallowing down the 100 comebacks clawing at my throat. My boyfriend Ryan, sitting quietly beside me, placed his hand lightly on my knee under the table, a silent signal. "Wait, don't react." Around us, the low hum of other diners continued, but our table felt like a stage and I was trapped in the spotlight. My aunt reached for her wine, clearly relishing the drama. My sister caught Mom's eye and whispered, "Told you she wouldn't say anything." I broke a piece of bread, my fingers steady now. "Are you done?" I asked softly. Mom gave a dramatic sigh, waving her hand dismissively. "Eat your bread, Emily." The rest of lunch passed in thinly veiled tension. Every laugh from my family felt edged with something sharp. Ryan's jaw was tight, his blue eyes flicking from face to face like he was cataloging every insult. When the bill came, Mom snatched it before anyone else could reach. "I've got this," she announced loudly, making it clear she was the one paying. It's important to treat family, especially the ones who can't treat themselves. Ryan didn't say a word, neither did I. We simply left when the plates were cleared, walking out into the bright Sunday afternoon. In the parking lot, he stopped beside his black SUV, turned to me, and said in a low voice, "Emily, I think I'm going to do something about today." I frowned. "Ryan, don't." He opened the passenger door for me, his expression unreadable. "You'll see." I slid in, not knowing that the next 24 hours would flip everything upside down, and that by Monday afternoon, my family would be sitting at that same table again. Only this time, Ryan would be the one holding the keys to the place. Monday morning hit with that restless heaviness you get when you didn't sleep enough but your brain wouldn't shut off anyway. I stood at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee, staring at the steam curling upward. Ryan had left early, telling me he had meetings. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. But the way he kissed my forehead before leaving, it wasn't his usual goodbye. My phone buzzed with the family group chat lighting up. "Sophie, lunch at Bella Mars again next Sunday?" "Mom, works for me. That place is perfect for family gatherings." I scrolled without responding. Bella Mars, the same place she'd gutted me in front of half the dining room. The humiliation still sat in my chest like a brick. The day dragged, but around 3 p.m., Ryan called. "Are you free around 5? I frowned. "Why? What's going on?" "Just be ready," he said. "Wear something you feel confident in." When Ryan said confident, he didn't mean flashy. He meant the kind of clothes where I could walk into a room and feel unshakable. I picked a black-fitted blazer, dark jeans, and ankle boots. Simple, strong. At exactly 5, his SUV pulled up. He stepped out, looking infuriatingly composed in a navy suit, the crisp white shirt open at the collar. No tie. The way his hand found the small of my back as I slid into the car made my pulse skip. We drove in silence for 10 minutes before I noticed the familiar brick building at the end of the block. My stomach tightened. Ryan, why are we going to Bella Mars? He just smiled faintly. You'll see. We pulled into the private parking area behind the restaurant, a space reserved for the owner and management. My confusion deepened when the head chef, Miguel, who'd worked there for years, stepped out the back door, wiping his hands on his apron. His eyes landed on Ryan and lit up. Boss, Miguel said, grinning. Everything's ready for you. Boss? Ryan gave him a nod. Appreciate it, Miguel. You'll meet Emily. She's with me. My brain was still trying to connect dots as we walked inside through the kitchen, the smell of garlic and rosemary wrapping around us. Staff glanced up from their stations, and I noticed something subtle in their expressions. Respect. We stepped into the main dining area, empty, now before the dinner rush. The soft lighting reflected off polished wine glasses. Ryan led me to our table, the same one where Mom had staged her little performance yesterday. I sat slowly, my palms brushing the linen tablecloth. Ryan? What's going on? He sat opposite me, leaning forward. Emily, you sat here yesterday and swallowed every insult, every little jab, without letting them see you break. That took more strength than they'll ever understand. I can't undo what they said, but I can make sure next time you're in this room, the power's in your hands. Before I could respond, the front door opened. 2 men in suits walked in, lawyers. One set a thick folder on the table and slid a page toward Ryan. Congratulations, one said. It's official. As of this afternoon, you own Bella Mars. I blinked. You what? Ryan's smile widened slightly. I bought the restaurant, Emily. Every table, every chair, every plate they used yesterday. It's ours now. My breath caught. I looked around the space, suddenly seeing it differently. This wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a stage, and the next act was mine. Tomorrow, Ryan continued, I'm inviting your entire family here for lunch. Same table. Only this time, the bill's on you. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not the polite kind, but the kind that felt like letting go of a weight I'd been carrying for years. And somewhere deep down, I realized, tomorrow wasn't just going to be payback. It was going to be the start of something bigger than I'd ever dreamed. By the time my family walked into Bella Mars the next day, the table was already set for 8. The fresh white linens were pressed so tightly they looked untouched, the silverware perfectly aligned, and the soft glow from the overhead pendants gave everything a polished, almost theatrical air. I'd been here nearly 20 minutes already, long enough to watch the staff prepare, to feel the quiet confidence settle over me like armor. Mom spotted me immediately. Emily, she said as she removed her sunglasses, her tone already tinged with something sharp. I hope you're not here to sulk like you did yesterday. I smiled faintly, keeping my voice even. Not at all. We all sat, chairs scraping gently against the floor, the air thick with unspoken tension. Sophie flipped open her menu without even glancing at me, but I caught her expression when she noticed the small cream-colored card clipped to the front. Welcome to Bella Mars, under new ownership. New owner? She muttered, eyebrows knitting. Before I could respond, the front door swung open and Ryan walked in. He wore the same navy suit as yesterday, only today there was a quiet authority in his stride. He wasn't alone. Right behind him was Harold, the former owner, and a poised woman in a charcoal blazer, the kind of lawyer whose presence always meant business. Good afternoon, Ryan said warmly, placing a thick folder on the table beside me. His voice carried, but not in a showy way, more like someone used to people listening when he spoke. I wanted to personally welcome you to our restaurant. Mom blinked at him, confusion sharpening her features. Our? Ryan looked straight at her, unflinching. I bought Bella Mars yesterday afternoon. Every table, every chair, every plate your food is served on. It's ours now, and I invited you here so you could enjoy it. He leaned slightly forward, his tone firm but measured. Today's lunch is on the house, on one condition. Keep it respectful. Sophie gave a short, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. You've got to be kidding. You're making this some kind of grand gesture? No, Ryan said evenly. This isn't a stunt. It's ensuring Emily is never treated here the way she was yesterday. Mom's jaw tightened, her fingers pressing into the edge of her menu. We don't need your charity. It's not charity, I cut in before Ryan could respond. My gaze locked with hers, steady. It's a reminder that you can't tear someone down in a place they own. That landed harder than I expected. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, and Sophie shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Miguel appeared with the first course himself, a plate of burrata and warm tomato confit on charred sourdough. He placed each plate down carefully, his smile lingering on me for a moment longer. "Compliments of the kitchen," he said, then disappeared as quietly as he'd arrived. As my family took their first bites, I watched their faces shift, the initial suspicion giving way to reluctant enjoyment. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about payback, it was about reclaiming a space where I'd been made to feel small and turning it into a place where I couldn't be silenced. The first few minutes passed with nothing but the soft clinking of cutlery and the murmur of conversations from other tables. I could feel my mother's eyes on me, even when she pretended to focus on her plate. "So," Mom finally said, dabbing her mouth with her napkin, "now that your boyfriend bought you a fancy lunch spot, what's the plan? Sit here every day pretending you're the boss?" I set my fork down slowly. I don't have to pretend. Ryan leaned back in his chair, calm but watchful. "Emily has more say in this restaurant than you think." Sophie smirked. "Oh, right. She's probably designing the dessert menu in between all her dreams." I kept my tone steady. Better than sitting around making fun of someone who's actually trying. Mark glanced between us nervously, clearly not eager to be caught in the crossfire. "Maybe we can all—" "No," I interrupted, looking straight at Mom. "Yesterday you told me I'd never be successful, that I should stop dreaming. You wanted everyone to hear it, so now they can hear this. I'm not stopping." Mom's jaw tightened. "You've always been dramatic." Ryan slid the folder across the table toward me. "Open it." I flipped it open to find legal documents, papers with signatures, stamped seals, the works. Ownership transfer. Bella Mars was officially under Ryan's company's name, and right below his signature was mine, listed as co-owner. My breath caught. "Ryan," he smiled slightly, "told you I wanted to do something about yesterday." The table went silent. Even Sophie's smirk faltered. "This isn't charity," Ryan continued, his voice calm but cutting. "It's an investment in someone I believe in, something you should have done a long time ago." Mom's eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. Anger, disbelief, maybe even embarrassment. She picked up her wine glass, trying to mask it, but her hand wasn't as steady as she wanted it to be. I leaned forward, my voice low but clear. "You wanted me to stop dreaming? Now I'm running the place you used to humiliate me in. So if you're going to eat here, get used to the fact that I don't take orders from you anymore." Miguel appeared again with the second course. Grilled halibut with fennel and lemon butter. He placed the plates down without saying a word, but the small nod he gave me said everything. The shift was subtle but undeniable. The control of the table had changed hands, and everyone knew it. The second course sat steaming in front of us, but no one touched their food right away. The air was too thick, heavy with a new kind of silence, one that didn't belong to Mom anymore. She finally broke it, swirling her wine glass in slow circles. "So, this is what you think success looks like? Hiding behind someone else's money?" I didn't flinch. "This isn't hiding. This is building. And unlike you, I don't measure success by who I can put down at a table," Sophie scoffed. "Please, you'd still be sitting in your little apartment if Ryan hadn't swooped in to play hero." Ryan's voice cut through, calm but with an edge. "Maybe you missed it, but Emily isn't just sitting here because of me. She's co-owner. That means she makes decisions, hires staff, plans events. Her name is on the documents as much as mine." Mark raised his eyebrows. "Co-owner?" Ryan nodded. "Every move this place makes from now on has her signature on it." Mom set her wine glass down, the sound sharp against the table. "You think this makes you untouchable, Emily? You think one restaurant changes who you are?" I leaned forward, my tone measured but unshakable. "It's not about being untouchable. It's about knowing that when someone tries to humiliate me, I don't have to take it anymore. Yesterday, you turned this place into a stage for my failure. Today, it's my stage, and I decide who gets a seat at the table." Miguel passed by, catching the words. Without a word, he topped off, "My water glass," a quiet show of loyalty that didn't go unnoticed. Mom's eyes narrowed, but she didn't reply right away. Instead, she picked up her fork and took a slow bite of the halibut. I watched her face as the flavor hit. She wanted to enjoy it, but pride wouldn't let her admit it out loud. Across the table, Sophie tried to change the subject. So what? You're going to just run this place now? That's the plan, I said simply. And not just run it. Improve it. We're adding community nights, training programs for culinary students, sourcing from local farms, things that matter, things that build instead of break. Ryan added, she's already mapped out the first month's changes. I've rarely seen someone more prepared. Dad, who had been mostly quiet, finally spoke. Well, I can't say I agree with how all this went down, but he gestured at his plate. This is good fish. It was as close to approval as I'd ever heard from him, and I let it stand. When dessert arrived, honey-drizzled figs over mascarpone, Mom finally looked at me directly. Her voice was cooler now, but softer too. You've made your point. I held her gaze. It was never just about making a point. It was about showing you, and myself, that I'm not the person you think I am. Not anymore. Ryan leaned back, satisfied. Then I'd say lunch is a success. We all sat in that strange mix of tension and quiet acceptance. My family might never give me the kind of support I wanted, but it didn't matter anymore. I had built something that couldn't be taken away with a few cutting words over lunch. And as they stood to leave, passing through the restaurant I now co-owned, I realized something. I hadn't just taken back control of the table. I'd taken back control of myself. The clink of silverware on porcelain was the only sound at the dinner table, until my mother's voice sliced through it like a blade. This trip isn't for someone like you, Emily, she said, without even looking at me. Her tone was calm, but the words carried that cold sting she'd perfected over the years. Just stay home. You wouldn't fit in. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. A forkful of pasta hung mid-air in my hand. What's that supposed to mean? My voice was steady, but my stomach twisted. Across the table, my brother Tyler leaned back in his chair, smirking. She means you'd slow us down. This is an exclusive resort, Em. Not exactly your scene. My sister Haley giggled, twirling her wine glass. Besides, you'd need a whole new wardrobe just to blend in. Can you even afford that? My breath caught. That was the thing about my family. They didn't throw punches. They carved you open with little cuts, subtle enough to pass as teasing, but deep enough to bleed. Dad chuckled as if they were all in on some inside joke. It's just a trip, Emily. Don't make it a big deal. The heat in my cheeks was building. I glanced at the itinerary lying in the middle of the table. 5 first-class tickets to the Bahamas. My siblings' names printed neatly in bold. Mine wasn't there. They already booked everything, Haley added, leaning forward like she was sharing a juicy secret. Tyler even got the ocean view suite. Guess you'll have the house to yourself, Tyler said, grinning like he'd just done me a favor. I set my fork down, slow and deliberate. Right, I said, my voice calm, too calm. Enjoy your little getaway, Haley smirked. Oh, we will. They laughed, the kind of laugh that makes you feel like the punchline. But they didn't notice my hand under the table, gripping my phone. My pulse was steady now. Because while they were busy dismissing me, they had no idea I'd been keeping a secret. One that was about to flip their perfect little trip upside down. The next morning, before the sun had even stretched across the horizon, I was already awake. My phone buzzed with a single text. All set. The jet will be at your driveway in an hour. I looked at the stack of glossy airline tickets sitting on my kitchen counter. The ones I'd borrowed after dinner when Tyler left his jacket on the chair and his pocket hung open. 5 tickets. First class. Now in my hand. Outside, the low hum of engines made my heart pound. I stepped to the window, and there it was. Sleek, white, and impossible to ignore. My husband Adam's private jet, parked on the street like it owned the neighborhood. The crew stood at the base of the steps, sunglasses on, waiting for me. I slipped the tickets into my bag, grabbed my sunglasses, and walked to the door. Today the tables were turning, and my family had no idea their perfect trip had just been canceled. The low hum of the jet's engines was already in the air when I stepped out of my front door. The morning sun glinted off its polished white body, parked just beyond the curb like it had every right to be there. Two uniformed attendants stood at the base of the stairs, their posture crisp, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. I clutched the ticket sleeve in my bag, feeling the edges press against my palm. Down the street, my family was loading suitcases into an Uber. Haley was posing in the driveway, Tyler filming her like she was about to star in a luxury travel ad. My parents stood off to the side, chatting with the driver. When they saw me walking toward them, all activity slowed. Haley tilted her head, spotting the jet behind me. "What's that doing here?" she asked, her voice too light, too curious. "Our ride," I said calmly. Mom scoffed. "Don't tell me Adam sent that for you." "He did," I replied, adjusting my sunglasses. "We have somewhere to be." Tyler smirked. "You're seriously trying to compete with us? That's cute." Without another word, I reached into my bag and pulled out the ticket sleeve. Their eyes locked on it instantly. Passenger 1, Karen Miller. Passenger 2, David Miller. Passenger 3, Tyler Miller. Passenger 4, Haley Miller. I let the pause hang. And passenger 5, some golf buddy. No Emily. Mom's smile faltered. "Where did you get those?" "You left them where I could see them," I said. "I figured I'd hold on to them for safekeeping." Dad's face tightened. "Emily?" "No," I cut in, my voice steady. "Last night you made it clear this trip wasn't for someone like me, so I made other plans." Haley laughed. "Other plans? What, going to the same place?" "Exactly," I said. "But I'll be staying somewhere. You can't." The jet's engines rumbled a little louder, like it was impatient. My family just stared, half shocked, half scrambling to process that the girl they dismissed at dinner now had the upper hand. "Enjoy your trip," I added, slipping the tickets back into my bag. "I know I will." And without waiting for another word, I turned and walked toward the jet, the sound of their disbelief chasing me all the way to the stairs. The sunlight hit the jet's metallic body like it had been polished just for this moment. I placed my foot on the first step, the faint vibration from the engines thrumming through the metal under my shoe. Every instinct told me to keep walking forward, but something made me pause halfway up. I glanced over my shoulder. My family was still standing there in the driveway. Haley's mouth was hanging open. Tyler was holding his phone halfway up, as if debating whether to record or pretend this wasn't happening. Mom's arms were crossed, but the stiffness in her jaw gave her away. Dad's hand was clenched on the handle of his suitcase. I let them watch me. I wanted them to. The attendant at the top of the stairs smiled politely. "Welcome aboard, Mrs. Cole." Inside, the cabin was bright and immaculate. Cream leather seats, walnut accents, and a faint citrus scent in the air. A crystal carafe of orange juice sat on the table beside a plate of fresh berries. Adam was seated toward the back, phone in hand, dressed in a tailored navy jacket that looked effortless on him. He stood when he saw me, setting the phone aside. "Right on time," he said. I smiled faintly. "I made sure of it." He studied my face for a beat. "You're not shaking." "That's good." "I'm not here to shake," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "I'm here to prove a point." He nodded once, understanding exactly what I meant without me having to explain. "So," he said, glancing toward the window, "they saw the jet?" "Oh, they saw it," I replied, buckling my seatbelt. "And the tickets. They know exactly where they stand." The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning. We'll be departing in 5 minutes. Estimated flight time to Exuma is just over 3 hours. Please prepare for takeoff." As the engines deepened to a steady roar, I looked out the oval window. The Uber had started to pull away from my parents' driveway, my family's faces still turned toward the jet. Even from here, I could imagine the conversation. Haley's high-pitched disbelief, Tyler's muttering, Mom's clipped accusations, Dad's attempt to play it cool while quietly seething. For years, I'd been the quiet one in the family, the one they didn't invite, didn't consult, didn't take seriously, and yet here I was, heading to the same island. On my own terms. The jet began to roll forward. Adam reached across the aisle and placed his hand over mine, grounding me. "You know," he said, "this isn't just about the trip. This is about you finally not letting them define you." "I know," I said softly, feeling the truth of it settle inside me. And as the nose of the jet lifted from the runway, Leaving the street, the houses, and their laughter behind, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. 3 hours later, the turquoise waters of Exuma glittered beneath us like shattered glass catching the sun. The jet's shadow skimmed the coastline before we touched down on the small private runway. The moment the cabin door opened, the warm, salty breeze swept in, carrying that heady mix of sea air and sun-warmed sand. Waiting at the bottom of the steps was a line of resort staff in crisp white uniforms, each wearing a name badge and a smile that looked like it belonged in a luxury travel magazine. A black SUV idled behind them, the kind with tinted windows, so deep they looked like obsidian. "Welcome to Exuma, Mrs. Cole," the resort manager said, stepping forward with an iPad in hand. "We have your entire ocean view wing ready, along with the cabanas you requested. Your private dinner on the beach will be set up for sunset." Adam glanced at me with a faint smirk. "You really went all in, didn't you?" I shrugged, trying to hide the satisfaction curling in my chest. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Inside the SUV, the leather seats were cool against my skin, the air conditioning sharp after the Caribbean heat. The road wound past swaying palms and bursts of hibiscus flowers until the gates of the resort came into view, towering iron flanked by security in spotless uniforms. The car slowed, and as we pulled in, I caught sight of something that made my pulse skip. Another black SUV parked just outside the entrance, luggage on the curb, and my family standing there in the heat, talking to a visibly apologetic staff member. I could see Haley gesturing wildly, her oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head, her free hand planted on her hip. Tyler was pacing, phone pressed to his ear. Mom's lips were tight, speaking low to Dad, who looked like he was ready to argue with anyone in a 5-foot radius. The manager beside me followed my gaze and gave a polite, knowing smile. "They tried to check in for the ocean view suites this morning," he said. "We explained the wing was reserved exclusively for your event. We've offered them garden view rooms instead." I bit back a laugh. "And?" "They declined. Said they'd wait for the mistake to be fixed." When the SUV rolled past them, Haley's head snapped toward me. Her expression froze somewhere between disbelief and fury. Tyler's jaw dropped. Mom's eyes narrowed into thin, sharp lines. Dad took a single step forward, as if he might block the car, but the driver eased us smoothly through the gates. The resort opened up before us, white stucco buildings draped in bougainvillea, infinity pools spilling into views of the ocean, staff carrying trays of tropical drinks to guests lounging under wide umbrellas. It was quiet, serene, exclusive. When we reached the private wing, a butler stepped forward to open my door. "Welcome home for the week, Mrs. Cole." Home for the week. I like the sound of that. As we walked toward the largest suite, I could still feel their eyes on my back from outside those gates. They had come to this island expecting to shut me out. Instead, they were the ones on the other side of the line, waiting, watching, and realizing that no amount of laughter at my expense could change where I stood now. And I wasn't done yet. The first 2 days at the resort felt like living in a different universe. Morning swims in the infinity pool with no one else around. Breakfast on my balcony overlooking the water, the sound of waves breaking against the shore as my background. Music staff who knew my name before I even introduced myself. Adam spent his mornings on conference calls for his company, leaving me the space to soak it all in. And I did, deliberately, unapologetically. But I knew my family was still here. Somewhere beyond the manicured hedges and security gates, they were simmering. I'd heard enough from the resort manager to know they'd managed to book rooms at a less expensive hotel down the road. They'd still been trying to talk their way into their rightful suites. The opportunity for a final word wasn't something I planned. It came to me. On the third evening, the resort hosted a beachfront welcome dinner for my Literacy Foundation's donors and volunteers. Long white tables draped in linen stood under strings of glowing lights. The smell of grilled seafood and fresh herbs mingled with the warm ocean breeze. As I stepped onto the sand in a flowing deep blue dress, I spotted them immediately, just beyond the rope that marked the private section of the beach. Mom in a stiff cream outfit that didn't suit the island heat. Dad with his arms crossed, scanning the setup. Haley in a sundress that was clearly meant for Instagram, phone in hand. Tyler standing just behind them, smirking like he was above the whole thing. They weren't here to crash the dinner. They were here to make a point. But so was I. I walked straight toward the rope, every eye at my table following me. "Evening," I said, stopping just in front of them. Mom's mouth tightened. "So, this is your little event?" I tilted my head. Not so little, actually. We've raised enough to open 2 new reading centers in under 24 hours. Dad gave a sarcastic huff. That's nice. So, are you done playing games now? You've made your point. No, I said, smiling faintly. Not yet. Haley crossed her arms. You seriously think humiliating us like this makes you the bigger person? I'm not humiliating you, I replied. I'm just showing you what I've been doing while you were busy telling me I don't fit in. I gestured toward the long tables, the people laughing and chatting, the resort staff moving effortlessly between them. You wanted me to stay home because you thought this trip was too good for me. But the truth is, this trip was never about you at all. Mom's voice dropped to that low, dangerous register she used when she was angry, but wanted to look composed. We're still family, Emily. Family? I let the word hang for a beat. Family doesn't measure your worth by the clothes you wear or the invitations you get. Family doesn't laugh at you for not being good enough, and family definitely doesn't tell you to stay behind like a stray dog while they go make memories without you. Dad's jaw tightened. You're overreacting. No, I said, my voice steady but sharp. I'm remembering. The sound of clinking glasses drifted over from the tables, followed by a burst of applause from my guests. The manager approached, holding a small microphone. Mrs. Cole, we're ready for your speech. I took the mic, but before I turned to my audience, I looked back at them one last time. You could have been here tonight, I said, not just as guests, but as people who supported me. But you made your choice, and I made mine. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked to the center of the tables, the sand warm under my heels, and faced my guests. Behind me, I could still feel my family watching. Good evening, I began, my voice carrying just enough to reach them too. When I started this foundation, a lot of people didn't believe in me. They thought I didn't belong in places like this. But what they didn't understand is that belonging isn't something people give you. It's something you claim for yourself. The guests clapped, some even standing. My eyes swept over the tables, past the twinkling lights, and toward the ocean. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was proving anything to them. I wasn't playing on their terms. I was just living mine, on my own ground, in my own voice. The sun dipped lower, casting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The waves kept rolling in, steady and endless. And somewhere beyond the rope, my family stood silent, not laughing, not dismissing, just silent, exactly the way I wanted it.